What's up, guys? So San Diego Comic-Con is literally a month away, which means that we are a month away from getting confirmed release dates and the entire slate of films coming for quote-unquote phases 4 and 5. I say quote-unquote because Kevin Feige has gone on record before to say that he's they're considering getting rid of the phases and just sort of telling the best stories they can. But until we actually know what's coming, we're calling them phases 4 and 5. So let's get straight into this and talk about all the announced films, rumoured films, and even some of the things that I'm hoping to see, not just on the big screen, but also through Disney Plus and other subscription services. Alright, so Far From Home comes out on July 2nd, and it officially ends Phase 3. And then San Diego Comic-Con is July 18th to, I can't remember, but it's sort of the weekend of the 18th. And then of the semi-announced films for phases 4 and 5, which are going to take place from 2020 to 2024, the films that are currently in development or being, have sort of been talked about are Black Widow, The Eternals, Black Panther 2, Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, a Nova film, potentially, Thor 4, Ant-Man 3 to finish off his trilogy, Captain Marvel 2, and then there have been reports that New Avengers, Young Avengers, and Dark Avengers are in the works. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. I'm actually kind of surprised that Spider-Man 3 is not on there. So potentially that as well. I say that because reading on some articles and stuff online, Norman Osborn is supposed to be sort of the Earth, ground level major villain, while I believe Annihilus or Galactus is the cosmic threat, and so they're going to have sort of one based on Earth and then sort of a more cosmic side as well. So we've got the Marvel Universe up until this point, and it's now sort of going into a cosmic side and a sort of grounded on Earth side. So yeah. New Avengers obviously makes a lot of sense, considering that Captain America went back in time, stayed back in time, is now an old man, and he's passed his mantle on. Tony Stark died, sacrificing himself to save the rest of the world. Potentially, Hawkeye's now gone, you know what, I'm like, this is it, I'm done. Because he had sort of taken the deal to be with his family and stuff. So he's probably out. Natasha's dead. And so the only original members we've got left really are Thor, and he's going to be sort of the more cosmic side now that he's with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Hulk, who potentially may just sort of stay around as sort of like a supervisor and an overseer of the new team, to help them with things that need his scientific expertise. So the New Avengers makes a lot of sense. The Young Avengers could consist of Clint Barton's daughter as the new Hawkeye. Morgan Stark could potentially become Ironheart, I think is Riri Williams' call sign. Or even there, like there's the potential for Riri Williams to come into it. You've got Peter Parker as Spider-Man. Cassie Lang could come in as Stature. So you've got the sort of groundwork there for a Young Avengers team, which is kind of cool. And then of course there's like Harley Keener, who could come in as Iron Lad, allowing Morgan Stark to do something else other than be in a suit of armor. And then the Dark Avengers makes a lot of sense when you consider that the Thunderbolts has sort of been thrown around a little bit, so that could be sort of a prelude into a potential Thunderbolts series, having a Dark Avengers. And also in the comics, the Dark Avengers is headed up by Norman Osborn, who, as I said, is apparently going to be the ground level's big bad guy. On Hulu, on the streaming service Hulu, there is already a Hellstrom and a Ghost Rider series being developed. The Ghost Rider they're using is the one played by Gabriel Luna in season 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so it will still be connected. But considering that the two of them have sort of that more dark, sort of more deserving of an R rating, supernatural sort of theming around them, other potential shows and stuff that could interact and collaborate and cross over with those shows are Blade, which has been in, I've read articles and stuff that it's in talks of getting a remake, bringing out everybody's favourite vampire slaying half vampire into the mix. Moon Knight, who's one of the most talked about as being on the fans' wish list sort of thing. And then I feel like bringing in Man-Thing, considering that he's been referenced no less than 3 times at least, what with his face being on the building, like the Grandmaster's Palace in Ragnarok, his wife being in Iron Man 3, and then in I think it was an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Maria Hill says who or what is a Man-Thing to, I think it's like Scarlet Witch or Black Widow or someone, but there is like canon evidence that he exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I feel like bringing him in as well, on top of Blade, Moon Knight, Ghost Rider and Hellstrom, which will also feature Satana as well, would be a really cool way to get sort of a Midnight Suns team-up show on Hulu, the same way that Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist and The Punisher were all part of the Defenders verse on Netflix, which would be really cool. Going back through the movies again, obviously Black Widow, I think I speak for just about every fan when I say that I really hope that this digs more into her past, lets us know what happened with Dracov's daughter, what the hospital fire was, what happened in Sao Paulo, just to name off the 3 that Loki lists. There's other ones later on, or earlier on, about different things that she's done. There's whatever the battle was that we see the footage of. We see some footage of them fighting in some battle that is not in Budapest, and then obviously there's Budapest as well. So I'm really kind of hoping that it does that. Potentially Winter Soldier could show up, because the Red Room also ran the Winter Soldier program, like the same people that ran the Red Room ran the Winter Soldier program. So the line when he's been brainwashed where she says, "You could at least notice me or recognize me," is actually in reference to that fact, and not in reference to the fact that he's killed someone by shooting through her, and then fought her in Washington. It's actually supposed to be in reference to the fact that she knows him on a more personal level than that, even when he's brainwashed. So that could be really cool to see. Obviously, Hawkeye hopefully will show up because we want to see what happened in Budapest. And then potentially Nick Fury and or Maria Hill will show up as well, hopefully. And I'm sure if it's on, if his schedule's clear enough for it, Coulson will show up as well. If it's going back in time, same way he showed up in Captain Marvel. The Eternals looks to be a really good film at the moment. There was a whole heap of chatter online about there being a gay superhero in one of Marvel's upcoming movies, that he wasn't gay in the comics. And while this is technically true, it's also not really that much of a change from the comic book character. So it's not like they were deliberately choosing a character that was straight, changing them to being gay. What it is that they're taking Hercules, who is bisexual both in the comics and in Greek mythology, and making him just purely and simply a gay man. So not really changing the character too much. He's still going to be sort of, incredibly strong. But yeah, it's going to be, it looks like it's going to be interesting. Black Panther 2 could be really cool. I don't know who they would have as the villain. Only villain I really knew of, actually I knew of two, and they were Ulysses Claw, who we saw with his sonic hand in the first one, where he died, and the Man-Ape, which they obviously did not call him the Man-Ape in Black Panther because of the connotations that has towards it being predominantly black cast, and rightfully so. Like, it's not exactly, you don't exactly want to call a big black guy a Man-Ape. That's but I feel like White Gorilla would have been an acceptable getaway, but that was M'Baku, so he was already in that as well. So I really don't know who they'd have as the villain. Shang-Chi should be pretty cool, bringing in some martial arts and some Asian representation. Will be really cool. Doctor Strange 2, apparently Clears is going to be in this one, as well as Brother Voodoo, Jericho Drum, and Cleo will apparently be of Asian descent. So that'll be really good, and I believe the villain for that's going to be Nightmare. So that's going to be really cool to see. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I have read so much about this ever since it was announced that James Gunn was involved again, because when he was originally attached to it before he got fired, I pretty much had a theory of where it was going to go. Then he got fired, I was like, okay, well, they're going to bring other people in to write it now because James Gunn was going to write it. And then they were like, no, we're going to use his script. So I was like, okay, maybe the story will still work. Then no one wanted to direct it because he'd written it. And then Marvel sort of was like, okay, well, we'll rehire him. We'll have to rework the script so it fits in with where it's going to appear in the storyline. But from what I've read, I pretty much called 90% of it. Rocket and Drax are going to be major protagonists. The High Evolutionary is going to be the villain. Rocket we're going to see Lila, which is his love interest. She is an otter. She has, I believe, psychic abilities, which leads me to believe that the High Evolutionary was working for Thanos the same way Ronan was, and that he was using Rocket and Lila, who are animals, as test subjects for his cybernetic enhancements, which is Rocket, and his mental, like, telepathic, telekinetic experiments on Lila, as well as other animals which would have other abilities, which obviously then led them to doing human experimentation to get Gamora and Nebula and the rest of the Black Order, who I believe will also include a sort of mind-wiped Chimeria, Drax's daughter, who will come out as being Moondragon. Quasar, Phyla-Vel's supposed to be in it. She's the daughter of Mar-Vell, who was in Captain Marvel, which means that potentially she was given to that project and to Thanos as a way of saying, don't kill our people, and we will just give you someone to, we will give you people to carry out your wishes, and sort of spearhead little splinter factions of your forces, which is why Ronan had his own little band of Sakarans to run around with. Star-Lord and Nebula are going to get closer as they search for Gamora, who is now back, even though she's still dead because she's 2014 version. So they're going to become closer friends while they search for her. And as I said, Drax is going to be surprised when he realizes that his daughter is still alive. And then they'll all come together to fight the High Evolutionary after Adam Warlock makes his appearance to try and fight them on behalf of the Sovereign. It's going to be a really sick movie. I'm looking forward to it. Nova is an interesting one. Apparently, there was going to be a scene in Infinity War where you actually saw Thanos go to Xandar and decimate it in order to get the Power Stone, which was obviously the first one he had. And in that, he was going to face off against Richard Rider, who is Nova from the comics. So knowing that that was potentially going to be a scene means that it makes sense that he would therefore want to come and, now that the rest of Nova's been decimated, he's going to come out and become more of a hero in the rest of the cosmos. Basically just doing his job just now with superpowers. Really cool. Thor 4, I mean, Chris Hemsworth said that he'll play Thor for as long as Marvel lets him. And so I think knowing that, Marvel deliberately left his story sort of unfinished at the end of Endgame, allowing us to now go on this new cosmic quest with him in Thor 4 and potentially other films as well. Ant-Man 3 would be really cool. No idea who they would use as the villain. But the quantum realm is supposed to be a big part of it. So potentially we'll get to explore that city that a lot of people thought was going to have a big part to do with Endgame. There was an Easter egg of a city which exists in the microverse in the comics. So potentially that's going to be in Ant-Man 3. And so whoever the villain is for that is going to live there. Considering that they used the quantum realm to time travel, and that there's a city in the quantum realm, I kind of feel like that city is Chronopolis, which is ruled by Kang the Conqueror, which would mean that that would be sort of that, and the Skrulls from Captain Marvel would be this little these little baby steps towards actually bringing the Fantastic Four in, considering that in the comics the Fantastic Four get their abilities while exploring another dimension. So Ant-Man 3 could potentially lead into bringing the Fantastic Four into it, which would be really cool, considering that in the comics Ant-Man was originally one of the original Avengers. And so, and also knowing that the Fantastic Four is not going to appear for the next 5 years at least, the X-Men potentially longer, because they want to sort of distance Fox's X-Men films from Marvel's. So it's going to take a little while for them to come into it. But Ant-Man 3 could introduce the Fantastic Four, which is really cool. Captain Marvel 2 would be really cool. It would be another more cosmic one where we would get to see her potentially save another planet. She may even have to end up fighting off, the first wave of Annihilus's forces before the full-on Annihilation wave comes through. Would be a cool way to sort of introduce that, or potentially she'll have to fight off one of the Heralds of Galactus as her main. Like Terex the Tamer would be kind of cool. He has this big battle axe, he's real bulky, stocky dude. And so I kind of feel like being, like this big manly man being taken down by a woman, I kind of feel like would hurt him the most. So that'd be kind of cool as well. A couple of things we can do there. And then, obviously then that brings me into what I'm hoping to see. I heard word that Zac Efron is potentially being eyed for Adam Warlock. I'm okay with this. He was one of the two that I was like, I'd be fine with either of these guys for Human Torch, but if he's going to be Adam Warlock, then that just simplifies things for me. So the people I want to play Fantastic Four are, and I've seen these running around. Apparently, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt are in talks to play Reed Richards and Sue Storm, which I could not be more excited for. I've seen the fan art of them. They look amazing. I read a bit of trivia that says Phase 4 will be the first time an actor both appears in and directs a film, and knowing that John Krasinski directed and acted in A Quiet Place, potentially it could be him. So I'd be down for that. That'd be really cool. Allowing some sort of like horror elements to come through from whatever dimension it is that they use to gain their powers. And then if they're going to do something like Mole Man, who was like the original bad guy for them, then there's all his like moloids and the mole monsters and stuff that'd give these cool like horror monster sort of like that'd be really cool. Or there's Red Ghost and his super simians, I think they call them. He's got an orangutan and a chimpanzee and an ape, I think it is, something like that. A gibbon or something. And they all have, they're all psychically linked, and he can control them psychically, so that'd be kind of cool. Otherwise, having already seen Skrulls, and to sort of tie it into another property that we know potentially coming along, they could end up fighting Super Skrull, which could then lead into seeing the Skrulls go from these people that were just seeking a home to now trying to fight back against the Kree, and therefore slowly transitioning back into being the villains that they are in the comics. But either way, I'm really excited for who's potentially playing Reed and Sue. Playing Ben Grimm, I've seen word that Dwayne Johnson is potentially being looked at. and I'm cool with this. I would also not mind if we saw Michael Chiklis come back. Stanley is quoted as having said that Michael Chiklis as the Thing in the original, like the 2003, 2004, which whenever it was that it came out, 2005 maybe, Fantastic Four film, that him as the Thing in that was his favourite piece of Marvel casting. So potentially he could come back, but if they're going to go with completely new actors, I think seeing The Rock as the Thing, which is a man covered in rocks, like the puns just there for Johnny to make, assuming that we're allowing Johnny to see through the fourth wall, of course, are just beautiful. There's so many puns that could be made there. And then if he doesn't get the Adam Warlock role, Zac Efron, because Zac Efron and The Rock were both in Baywatch together. They were both brilliant in that movie together. So it would be amazing to see them together again, particularly in roles where they're going to have to interact quite highly, and have that back and the comedic back and forth that they had in Baywatch. So they've already sort of set that groundwork. I think that'd be really cool. If not, Liam Hemsworth I saw was also being considered, and I'm not against it. I think it would be more enjoyable for me personally if he was given Adam Warlock, because Adam Warlock's on the cosmic side, so is Thor, so you'd have both the Hemsworth brothers being able to like have this moment of like, you look familiar, maybe, would be kind of cool. Particularly since the Guardians of the Galaxy, which Thor is now flying around with them, remember, are sort of this family. So to then have Adam Warlock come in, being played by Liam Hemsworth, when his real life brother is playing Thor, who is also going to be with the Guardians of the Galaxy, would just kind of complete the family thing as well. So it works on a couple of different levels there. But I've seen him being looked at by like fan casts and stuff as being the Human Torch, and I'm not against it. I think they're really good. We know he has the action chops for it because he was in the Hunger Games series, and he's probably one of my favourite characters from those movies. Then, of course, we've got the X-Men, and I mean, this list could go on forever, really. But if they're going to use Gambit, I really want them to use Channing Tatum. He never got to make the Gambit movie. Like, he never got to do that with Fox. So, therefore, technically, he's never played Gambit, meaning that Marvel can still use him, can still make the Gambit film, and sort of allow him to do that project, which he's already invested so much time in. Plus, he just, and obviously looks wise, he fits the role really well. But acting wise as well, he was in Jupiter Ascending. He's been in, what are some of his other action roles? Oh god. Obviously he was in Magic Mike, but that's not really a for Gambit sort of thing. But I mean, he's had some experience with action roles, so that'd be really cool to see him finally get to do that. Then, as who did I say it was for? Tom Hardy as Wolverine, if we're able to bring Tom Hardy across from Sony. I know that he's playing Venom, so there could be, you're already playing a Marvel character, you can't. But if they can't get Tom Hardy to play Wolverine when they inevitably bring the X-Men into it, then Keanu Reeves, I saw a report that he'd sort of expressed interest. And there was another character that I thought they would both fit well, or that one of them was going to fit well. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I think it might have been something like Doctor Doom or something. I can't remember. But yeah, other than that, I don't really have a whole heap of thoughts on who should play the X-Men. There's literally that many characters that appear in the X-Men throughout the years that you kind of have to pick and choose which X-Men you're using. Like, are we going with all the ones that we've already seen before, like Cyclops and Phoenix and Storm and Beast and Wolverine? Or are we gonna go back and literally just go, this was the original team in the comics, that's the first movie, which would consist of Cyclops, Jean Grey, Beast, Angel and Iceman, and then move that then into, within the second movie, they then find more mutants, which would then include Storm, Wolverine, Colossus, Banshee, Proudstar. I think he's also known as Warpath, and who's the sixth member? I know there's a sixth member, and Nightcrawler would be there as well. Potentially we could also bring Shadowcat into it as well. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff we could do there. So yeah, if they are going to do a Young Avengers and it is set sort of more in the future after Morgan Stark grows up a bit, obviously they're going to use Catherine Langford for that. Otherwise, if they're just going to bring Harley Keener in as Iron Lad and let Morgan sort of just grow up as a little kid and keep it set with Peter Parker still being Spider-Man and still being in school, then I would love to see Catherine Langford play Shadowcat. She's an amazing actress. Shadowcat is my favourite X-Man, not only because she can walk through walls, but also because she has a pet dragon, and she once called Charles Xavier a jerk, and he respected her for it. So, like, plus she has her abilities get to the point where she can phase through time. Obviously, in the movies, that's shown as she can send your mind back in time, but in the comics, she actually phases through the fabric of time, so she can time travel. She is a time traveler herself, and it'd be really cool to see her use that, especially if the theory that the snap, which made Earth sort of ground zero for a cosmic explosion of energies, is the excuse for all of a sudden mutants coming into existence, which makes sense. And then obviously as the energy ripples out from there, and then again from Titan, and then again from Earth, obviously more and more mutants are going to start showing up, if that's the way they're going with explaining how mutants enter the MCU. And other than that, yeah, like I said, the Dark Avengers could eventually lead us into a Thunderbolts film, which would be really cool. We'd be able to finally see what happened to the leader. Abomination could come back. You'd have Thaddeus Ross as the Red Hulk, and sort of also leading the team under the Sokovia Accords, and they would still be working for the Sokovia Accords, meaning that the Thunderbolts would be the only pro-registration superhero team that exists, considering that Endgame basically brought all these heroes back fighting outside the Accords, because the UN never said, yeah, no, stop Thanos. So everything they did in Endgame and Infinity War was against the Accords. So they're all now wanted. which would make the Thunderbolts the only pro registration team. Yeah, I think other than that, I don't really have anything I want to see. I mean, the Masters of Evil would be kind of cool to see, particularly if they're against the Dark Avengers or the Thunderbolts, because then it's like a team of villains fighting a team of villains, which would be really cool. You could have like loyalties changing and stuff, and it'd be all sorts of fun. Yeah. The only thing I'm hoping is that when they finally bring the Fantastic Four in, by all means, have Doctor Doom in the film, but just as Victor Von Doom. Don't let him be the villain straight away. Do what they did, with like Loki. Loki was a really good villain, and he was always sort of like in that villainous state, and they sort of tried turning him into an anti-hero at the end. But I feel like if you go the other way with Doctor Doom, so you have him there, he knows the Fantastic Four, they get abilities, he decides that he's going to go back to, and I mean, like, he could be Sokovian, for all we know. Like, make him Sokovian if you want to simplify the movie side of things, so that people don't have to be like, okay, there's another country now that we need to know of, apparently in Europe, called Latveria. Just make him Sokovian, which would mean that he would know at least of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. He would know at least of Zemo, and he would therefore dislike Tony Stark and therefore the Avengers as well, because of the not only the Stark weapons that collapsed the buildings during their civil war, but also like Age of Ultron, which was largely set in Sokovia. Seems like a fairly legit reason to hate someone. Plus, that Hydra castle is now empty and has robot tech in it. All those broken bots could become Doom bots, so making him Sokovian makes sense. You know what? Put a pin in it right there. I'm making the theory that when they bring him in, he's Sokovian. It fits. And so he'd probably go back there, give himself sort of his semi-Iron Man costume, because he does have... his abilities are techno-mystical, I believe is how they're put. Like, he had like a gypsy mother or something. I can't remember. Comics. But yeah, no, it'd be really cool to see him sort of put on his suit, which has these sort of weapons in it, while also being able to manipulate cosmic and dimensional energies like the sorcerers in Doctor Strange, because he does actually have sorcery powers. So there is also the potential there that the Fantastic Four team up with Doctor Strange to fight Doctor Doom, which would have to be later on, once you've established who the Fantastic Four are, who Doctor Doom is, and given him a bit of a journey to get to the point where he's actually a big threat. And if Norman Osborn's going to be the big threat first, obviously waiting until Fantastic Four are then in the MCU themselves, give it a couple of years, and he could be the one that comes after Green Goblin, before we finally start seeing these heroes team up as the Masters of Evil, which would be really cool to see these ground level heroes fighting. But yeah, I won't ramble too much longer. I literally could go on the rest of the day about this. I'm really excited, but I'm going to do another video just like this in a month's time. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscription button and the notification bell so that you are alerted when I upload that video. How rude, the camera cut out and did not let me finish recording. But yeah, definitely hit that subscription button and the notification bell so that you can be notified when I upload those videos. Check out my socials down below. On my Tumblr, I just uploaded the first 2 parts to a new story, so if you want to go check out my reading, and I would love for you to go check out my reading, and then leave me comments either on here or on there. Definitely give that link a follow. Follow my Tumblr if you have a Tumblr. I literally only use Tumblr for my writing, so if you want to see any of my writing, go there. There's already also a bunch of stories on there as well. I generally upload in sort of little parts. So if you think a story is finished, probably isn't. I usually go to about 10 parts, and then after that I start a new story. But just because I start a new story doesn't mean that the previous one is actually finished. I do plan on writing more in particular stories, like universes. So if you like a particular story, let me know, and I will make it a higher priority to follow up once I've sort of gotten through my first little wave of short stories. My Instagram is private, but if you can send me a message and let me know that I sent you, I will add you, and if I like what you've got on your Instagram, I will follow you back as well. Always looking to be inspired by other creative people. And yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of everything that this video contained. What casting would you give for the X-Men? Let me know that, because I'm probably going to talk about that as well next month. What with Spider-Man Far From Home and Comic-Con coming out, next month's probably going to just be a lot of superhero talk. So a fan casting for the X-Men is likely to happen in the next month. So let me know what you like, because you may actually convince me of a particular person being good for a particular role, and that'll end up becoming my like top pick for that particular character. And yeah, until next time guys, night to A2, I will check you later.